afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for coming along to this afternoon's event. I think we'll make a start now. I'll just go through a few housekeeping points. In the event of a fire, the meeting point for the sanctuary is right at the beginning, right at the start of the building by reception outside, and we have a fire meeting point sign there. Hopefully that won't happen though. If anybody here has never experienced healing before and would like to, then we can arrange for healing to happen either through our reception, or if you'd like to go and have a word with Tracy, who is just waving her hand there, and she will organise a healing session for you. As you're here, why not experience it if you haven't already. If I could request everybody to switch their mobile phones off, so we don't have any mobile phone ringing tones in the middle of people speaking. Teas and coffees are at the back of the marquee. Please do feel free to help yourselves during the event. This is a very relaxed event. We're not standing on ceremony, so if you feel thirsty during the event, just go and help yourself to teas and coffees. That is absolutely fine. Ladies and gents, toilets, if you should need them, are just through this door, through the double doors in front of you, turn left and then right, and then we've got gents and ladies in the same place. And again, if you need a comfort break, please do feel free just to go and then come back. You have got various nibbles on your tables. Please do feel free to take the cellophane off and munch away during the event. It's a creature comfort we absolutely need, so do feel free to have a good munch away. My colleague Alan will be filming the speakers as they're speaking so that we can capture the very essence of the talks that they're making today. What we won't be doing is going round filming people at the event, because we're aware that some people are sensitive about not being filmed and not having their face on film. So the filming will be just of the talks themselves. Also at the back of the room you'll see a few tables of yellow. We've got some goodie bags at the back of the room which basically contain details of the organisations organising this event, and also details of the speakers and background information on them. So please do take a goodie bag away with you, and we've also got the latest edition of the Healer magazine, which is the Harry Edwards Healing Sanctuary magazine, in there as well. So without further ado, I would like to hand over to the chair of the Harry Edwards Healing Sanctuary, Martin Thomas, to welcome you here today.
Well, someone just walked in. Thank you, Alison. Thank you very much. Well, welcome everybody to our beautiful sanctuary. We're absolutely delighted to be hosting this event, not just because we're very proud of the sanctuary and we want to share it with as many people as we can, but because our founder, Harry Edwards, was very enthusiastic about the potential for healing to be working hand in glove, were his words, with the medical profession. Unfortunately, he didn't see that realised in his lifetime, but it is events like this over the years which slowly but surely are hoping to realise that what is still an ambition. The reluctance of the medical profession is really actually quite understandable, and they are represented here today, so we very much welcome you and thank you for being open to what we do in the spiritual healing world. But just reflecting on the fact that doctors and the medical professionals spend many, many years studying and accumulating the massive knowledge and information they need to do their jobs properly, it's perhaps not surprising then that they should be a little bit hesitant to accept help from lay people like ourselves. The thought that occurred to me was that, if we went to some other professional, let's say an airline pilot, and knocked on the door of the cockpit and said, "Oh, can I help you fly this jumbo jet, please?" And he said, oh, hello there. Well, are you an experienced and qualified pilot then? And you said, no, I've never done anything about aeronautics whatsoever, but I've been told that I can do it. So, you know, we've got to put ourselves in a position where the professionals in the medical world connect and understand what it is we're bringing to the table. Sorry, have you pulled the plug on the mic already? even for me, that was premature. Welcome, everybody. So the ball's in our court. We've got to find a way of presenting what we do and the evidence, the overwhelming evidence of probably the best part of a century's anecdotal and written evidence that healing works. And we've got to find a way of packaging that and presenting it to the professionals in a way that answers their sort of fundamental question as to how can you possibly assist in this work without any formal education, and by the way, without being able to explain what you do, how it works. So, you know, we've possibly been a little bit naive in not putting ourselves in the shoes of the medical professionals when we've been talking to them. Here, as with several other healing organisations, we have been trying for many years to connect with the doctors and healers, and events like this are a terrific step along that path. We sponsored it was actually a PhD study about 10 years ago into a clinical trial, it was, of spiritual healing at, I think it was Southampton General Hospital, where we provided the healers to an organised clinical trial, which did demonstrate that healing was effective. This was a group of breast cancer patients, and it was a proper sort of serious study that actually resulted in the lady that organised that trial receiving a doctorate for the work. So there is a sort of scientific evidence building up. Since then, the sanctuary here have been involved more recently with the Sam Buxton Sunflower Healing Trust, who place paid healers to work in hospitals, and we've been co-sponsoring healers there. And right up to date, we have a small number of our healers now actually beginning to work in local hospitals on a voluntary basis, providing healing initially to staff, but hopefully that will sort of spread out and develop into treating patients. So that's just the work that we've been doing, and other organisations like the Healing Trust and other organisations, our sister groups, are doing good work. So let's hope that events like this kind of unite us all and help us to identify what our common objectives are, respecting any differences that we may have, but focusing on our common objective, and to ultimately, perhaps in our lifetimes, to bring spiritual healing into and becoming part of the standard treatment one might receive. Just to close, I would like to, as I say, picking up on the ambition that Harry Edwards had all those years ago to see this successful. I've found a letter which Harry Edwards wrote in 1961, which I thought was relevant to today. So he was writing as the president of the NFSH. Sorry. You have to fill in the words that are missing. It's a bit like a competition. So he was, as well as running this sanctuary, Harry Edwards was also the president of the National Federation of Spiritual Healers. And there was a trial that had been done around 1960 in South Wales, in some hospitals there, where the hospitals were investigating spiritual healing. And Harry Edwards wrote this letter to one of the healers. 6th of January 1961, Dear Miss Butler, I'm writing to congratulate you upon the successful outcome of your visit to the Cardiff Hospital. I have seen the press report and your own personal letter, in which it seems to me that you have presented the National Federation of Spiritual Healers' views accurately, and your own testimonies have been responsible in maintaining the privilege of our members to visit the sick in the Cardiff hospitals. This success is all the more important considering that you had the weight of official medical opinion against you, and the Federation's thanks are yours for your excellent efforts on its behalf. I shall have much pleasure in bringing your good efforts to the notice of the Council. With all good wishes, yours sincerely, Harry Edwards. So there you go, a heartfelt thank you from Harry all that time ago, and here we are engaged in exactly the same objective. So do enjoy this afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'll hand back to our MC today, Alison. And incidentally, before I forget, I would just like to thank Alison for the terrific work that you've done in getting today's event organised with your supporters and colleagues. So thank you very much, Alison.
Thank you, Martin. I'd now like to hand over to Dr. Tim Ridge, who is chair of the Dr. Healer Network.
Do I keep sitting down, Alison? Oh, yeah. I don't know if I can quite follow on your act there, Martin, you know, not quite pacing up and down at the front. So lovely to see everyone here. My name is Dr. Tim Ridge. I'm a retired GP now. And when I started in general practice back in 1976, I joined the family practice. Literally, it was my father and uncle was there and others. And one of the first things my father said to me, whatever you do, don't get involved with that fringe medicine lot. You'll be struck off by the GMC. And here I am. So yeah, it's been fun. The Dr. Healer Network, just to give you a little bit of history, was set up in 1989, quite a while ago now. And it was set up by a very forward-looking Dr. Daniel Benor, Canadian doctor, who was working over here, psychologically orientated, and he was a great enthusiast of healing, having learned healing himself and seen its benefits. So he did a massive amount of collecting of research, and this was his volume 1. You can see the thickness of this. Volume 1, Healing Research Volume. 124 studies showing the benefits, positive benefit of spiritual healing, as it was known. And he set up the Dr. Healer Network to bring about the promotion of healing in medicine, so the same as we are talking about. And in the book, some of the comments on the back, Larry Dossey, still a very well-known name, said, "Scientific proof for healing is one of the best kept secrets of our time," which is still true, sadly. It's something about the medical profession that Martin referred to. It's very conservative. New ideas take time to catch on. You know, a century would be average, you know. And there's a lot of disbelief. Introducing healing, you use words like healing, and that's like a red rag to the bull. You know, well, we do the healing around here. What do you think you're doing, you lot? And then spiritual, another sort of red rag. So it's a difficult thing to get people to see who've gone through medical training, which is very scientific, and you're taught in medical school, this is the way things are done. Your professors are like gods, and you go through the rest of your career very often without evolving very much from what you learnt at medical school. But we have to evolve. So the Dr. Healer Network, 1993, I joined, that's nearly 30 years ago. Things haven't moved on an awful lot, and even though there is all this research that we've got, and we're going to hear more, there's this credibility gap, and I think the medical profession generally feel, well, if I don't believe in it, then anything that shows that it might work can't be true because I don't believe in it. So there's this credibility gap, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. The way this has evolved then is that one of our previous chairs, Angie Buxton King, decided, well, I'm just going to go ahead and do it. I just want to get healers in hospitals, in medicine generally. And so she actually left the Dr. Healer Network as the lead and set up her own organisation, set up a charity to raise funds in memory of her son Sam, who died of leukemia. And she went on to work as a healer at University College Hospital and wrote a book about it called The NHS Healer, which I'd highly recommend if you haven't come across it. And so far to date, through her fundraising, she's placed 27 healers in hospitals around the country, and latterly, as we heard, in conjunction with the Harry Edwards Healing Sanctuary. And this collaboration and coming together of like-minded groups is what we welcomed. And again, thank you, Alison. Alison approached us to make contact through our website. And we've been quietly poodling away, having meetings, 3 or 4 times a year, and inviting speakers and having the occasional conference, not for a long time now. So it's a delight to actually have this collaborative effort. And coming out of lockdown after the COVID, I think that's been our intention now, is to sort of really expand activities, really link up with more like-minded organisations, whether it's the Healing Trust, it is the Healing Trust, the Confederation of Healing Organisations, etc., so that we can actually form, going forward, an alliance of groups who have this same incentive, like Harry Edwards had way back 70 years ago, we're talking now, aren't we? From the medical point of view, just to show you this book was called Faith Healing by Dr. Louis Rose, and that was the result of 10 years of looking into Harry Edwards' activities and the NFSH, and trying to find out whether faith healing, as he referred to it, actually worked. And sadly at that time they couldn't actually get the conclusive evidence, because it was mainly anecdotal, as it's called in the medical world. It's single case histories. Oh, well, that showed an improvement, but it could have been due to that. So it's a very interesting book, and interesting that a doctor then was actually looking to find that it did actually work, because he thought, if this actually works, I really want it in my practice, because this is going to save, way back then, this is going to save the NHS money. It's going to be wonderful to improve things. We won't have to use so much drugs. So people were thinking of that then. Good old Dan Benor, founder, has written this book and the other volumes, but this is the one that's about scientific validation of a healing revolution. And like he has said, and like Harry intended, it's time that revolution really gathered a bit of weight. So our speakers today are actually people like I mentioned, Angie Buxton King has been doing, who have been doing it, and they're here to tell you the most amazing experiences that they've been having. So it's a great delight really to first off introduce Suzanne Ruggles, who I nearly fell off my chair when I realised she'd been doing stuff at St George's Hospital, one of the big teaching hospitals, for 20 years plus, and I'd never heard of this until very recently. What? So, Suzanne, over to you to tell us all about it.
Thank you. Thank you. Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah. So, first of all, thank you very much to Dr. Tim Ridge. He heard about me a few years ago now, and I came to give a talk to the Dr. Healer organisation. I was absolutely thrilled to hear of such an organisation. And obviously, very recently, he's introduced me to Alison McWhinney, and so I'm absolutely delighted to be here. It kind of feels like I'm coming home to be amongst you guys. So thank you. So I just wanted to break my talk down into 3 parts, which is why, how, and where. So the why makes sense of the how and where for me. And my why has 3 parts to it. So the first part was when I was about 6 years old. I had a vision, completely unexpected, doing something, walking somewhere, and I just got a vision of a mountainside, silver birch trees, white barked silver birch trees, and with that came a knowing. And I had never seen white barked silver birch trees before. I was living in the New Forest, and silver birch trees don't look like that in the New Forest. Certainly when I was 6 years old they didn't. But with it came this knowing, and the knowing was kind of life is a journey, and there are, and I was shown from a different perspective, a road and junctions, and those junctions are choices, and the choices we make are important. And to my little small 6-year-old mind, it was given in quite simplistic form, that this isn't the only life. Now that's not me making that up, it's what I was told, or shown, or whatever. So this knowing came that there's something bigger, there's something we're working towards, we're part of something, there are choices, the choices that we make are important, but we're actually also working towards something much bigger. And then the image stopped. But it never left me and informed actually everything I did. I actually went into business, was an international designer. People like Guy Ritchie did my deliveries back in those days before we went to Hollywood. And there was a difficulty for me in those days, purely to how do I make money when I know that it's difficult, you know, when you've seen something like that when you're 6. So anyway, I had a very successful business, but I wasn't absolutely sure I was on the right path. Then I became ill, and more ill, and eventually was diagnosed with quite a serious autoimmune condition. And to cut a very long story short, that was the beginning of, again, this route I'm on, and perhaps the utter junction. And my consultant said, you've got to learn to manage your stress. This illness you have is your antibodies are extremely elevated. We really need you in hospital, etc. And that was another moment. But what he said to me is, you need to manage your stress. I thought, gosh, that's a good idea. I hadn't thought about that. I mean, this was 96. And I said, okay, great. How do I do that? That seems like a good idea. I've got a plan. You know, I was a businesswoman at that point. I've got a plan. I can work this out. And he went, I have no idea. And I went, oh my gosh, you've just delivered a really serious diagnosis to me. Thankfully, he gave me a clue. There was something I could do, but there was no follow through, no signposting. I was effectively kind of on my own. So I rang my mother, and they've always had a background of healing in their world. And I just said, look, I'm playing Russian roulette with my life. I didn't realise I was that stressed. Clearly I was, but I said, now I really am. And I've been told that if this gets out of control, if it decides to attack my brain, I would have probably about 24 hours before I would lose consciousness. And I was really stressed by all of that now. The diagnosis was more stressful than anything else at that point. And she suggested me to a healer who had worked for her horses. So I thought, that's good, that's great. So anyway, I had this first healing session, and I went into what I can describe as the most wonderful, peaceful bubble, where a bit like being in this tent, but it was sort of circular around me. Everything outside is outside. In here is a different space, and that's what it was like for me. And I went, oh my gosh. Then I had a fabulous night's sleep, and I was sort of hooked. This is interesting. There's something here. And then I became very interested in the mind-body connection. And then I began learning different modalities. Bioenergy therapy, some of you may have heard. I trained in neuro-linguistic programming, went into reflexology, studied that, and then eventually went into psychology, health psychology, and before I knew it, they were saying, don't carry on any further with your degree, do a master's. So I eventually did that at St George's Medical School because I became so interested in the sort of mind, body, and the scientific link too. So then fast forward to how I ended up in the hospital actually working, because the hospital I tried to stay out of was St George's Hospital. Some of you may know it's one of the largest in Europe. And I basically decided I needed to find a different way to live my life. I'd had a wake-up call, I sold my business, I had enough money not to have to work for a year, and so I was volunteering as a practitioner, and at the end of that year I was offered a position not as a practitioner, but putting my admin hat on, if you like, in St George's on the Haematology unit. And I thought, and it was sort of supposed to be just a 3-month project, and that was not supposed to be where I was heading. And I walked on the ward, the Haematology unit, and I just had that same knowing as I had when I was 6. I'm meant to be here. I don't know why, I don't know how, and this was December 2000, but I just have a feeling I'm supposed to be here. I know no more than that, quite literally. So I meditated, And from my early experience, age 6, I know that we are in a partnership, if you like, with something bigger, the universe, whatever we wish to call it, and however we wish to think of it. But that's, from my experience, that's what it is. So I kind of put it out there. Okay, guys, this is amazing. You've put me in this place. I can see there's work to be done, but how on earth do we move forward? And then I got a sense that there would be a patient. I would know who that patient was, and the rest will unfold. So I became aware there was one particular patient who came in, and I got the clearance to work with him, and that was just before Christmas 2000. And after 3 sessions, I went home. It was Christmas, and came back in the new year, expecting to find him obviously still there. He had leukemia. He had relapsed leukemia, had only been in remission for 6 months. He was in renal failure when he was admitted and due to go to intensive care. So I wasn't sure where he would be, either in intensive care or in a haematology unit. And the sister came to me and she said, "I need to talk to you now." And I went, "Oh my gosh, what's happened?" And she said, she took me to her office and she said, "Do you know that patient went into spontaneous remission?" And he went home. He went home on Boxing Day. And we don't know what you're doing. I don't know how you did it, but we need this. So please, can you put a business plan together? We need this here. But by the way, sorry about this, Tim, what I'm about to say, and any doctors here, she said, "But we can't tell the doctors." If only Tim had been there, that would have been something that she would have said. She said, "You have to fly under the radar. We need you, so will you crack on?" I said, "Yes, okay. How do you fly under the radar? Okay, that's fine. I can keep my head down," which is probably why you hadn't heard of me, because I actually took that to heart quite a lot. Yeah, very successful, flying under the radar. But the one bit we didn't imagine was, of course, then I was able to see quite a few patients on the ward, and what we forgot was actually in the ward round, when patients had whatever I was offering, and obviously meditation and breathing techniques were all part of it. These patients were going, "Look, we're feeling fantastic," and the professor would say, "But you can't be, you're about to have bone marrow transplant." Patients, sorry, but don't really feel fantastic as they're leading up to that, or going through weeks of isolation for their chemotherapy. They don't often feel well through that, as any one of you can imagine, with really high dose chemotherapy. And they were all saying, "No, we feel so good, and we're sleeping better, and we're not taking medication to sleep," and of course flying under the radar was busted. So then I got a consultant come to me, and he said, again, "I don't know what you're doing." I didn't know which way the conversation would go. I thought it'd be door or we're behind you. I wasn't sure, so revolving door. And he said, again, "Don't know what you're doing, but we need this. And there's an ethical reason that we need this. I don't understand it, but I can see it's helping. Therefore, stay, help us build this. We will support you." And bless him, that's Dr. Bevan, and he is a leading, he's retired now, but leading authority on sickle cell disease, which then became a lovely project that we worked on, the first project of its kind in the world. Went to Harvard subsequently as part of my degree, and I told them, there's things you can do for sickle cell patients, and they at Harvard said, "We didn't even know anything was really possible with integrative therapies." So I shared a train down to New York with a nurse who went off to Texas, back to where she was, going, "I'm going to start introducing this for my patients now." So, sorry, long story, come back. We now have a service. We started in haematology. I was cutting my way through the red tape, because even with that support, there was a lot of red tape, as you guys all know. But the service did get started. It didn't have a name, and it was, I saw something much bigger than the ward I was on, much bigger than the hospital I was in fact nationally and possibly wider. But already trying to build something in St George's Hospital was a big task, so I had my work cut out, and then I got ill again. And this time it was meningitis, and this time it was literally hanging on by a thread. I was admitted with septicemia, and I subsequently learned that if I'd come in an hour later, they could not have saved me. But I hung in that balance between maybe surviving, maybe she'll survive, but with brain damage. Those were kind of my options. And at that point, knowing that I already had this project, but I hadn't had enough time to get it to realization, a bit like on Dragon's Den, I made a bargain and a beg for my life to continue with this project, because I felt that the sort of roadmap for it, I hadn't had time to share. So at that point of begging for literally for my life, I felt a wave come through me of unconditional love, is all I can describe it as, came through my crown, through me, a light and the most beautiful, beautiful love that is a million times more than the most amazing love you can feel here. It's just so, so stunning. Just came through me, and it kept coming through me. And I had also said, but if you're calling me home, I can't resist that, can I? But in which case, I don't know how to die. Please help me, because it felt like I was being expected to walk off a cliff, and I don't know about anyone else, but I'm not brave enough to do that. And I was petrified. But more than that, I really didn't want to go. But it was totally linked to the project. I had a near-death experience. They thought I was dying that one particular night. I left my body, couldn't get back down, and then a miracle did happen. It is in a book which I haven't even brought today, which just shows I'm just not fixated on some of the things I should be. Anyway, we can share details of that separately. The name came as I was about to go home, and the name was Full Circle. And I saw it as a little boat, and it was sailing from east to west, no idea why, come through a storm, and its cargo was important, but it was really moving some, tacking with the wind, and I just knew that was sort of perhaps my experience or what I would then set up. So it took about another 3 months to properly recover. I did, thank God, spoiler alert. So the project now is, we are, well, up to COVID, we were pretty much across the trust working with people with life-limiting or life-threatening conditions. I don't limit it to one diagnosis, never have, and don't ever want to. It's where the need is most, and it is directed, would you believe it, by clinicians and nurses, and that is like how it should be. With the weight coming from the patients themselves, the push coming, and that's a voice that we can know is a really important voice, is the patient's voice. So we are obviously in haematology, which is leukemia unit, transplant unit, oncology, obviously pediatrics, but we have received referrals from intensive care, neurointensive care, in pediatric intensive care. We got cleared within 24 hours from the standing start in pediatric intensive care. Now we are still in those areas, but there is an additional and pressing need, and this is to support the NHS workers. I feel, and always have felt very, very strongly, I'm also very passionate to support them. Those that supported us, I know they stepped up and above and put their neck on the line, but it's alive and kicking in the NHS, openness for this, what we're talking about. So I have now been invited by the Trust MD onto the Trust Recovery and Wellbeing Committee, and that is focused on finding ways to support staff burnout, obviously high levels of anxiety, absences. They haven't taken their foot off the pedal since we all went through the pandemic, but they of course were right on the front line. So this is very exciting. I've got a trustee in America who's a former Mayo Clinic physician, and she has informed us of what's happening in the States, which is a little ahead of the curve in these sort of things. So we are bringing that know-how to right into St George's. We've partnered actually for another project which was setting up a Reiki project in St George's about 4 years ago. Part of that we actually created a collaboration with the Mayo Clinic, because they have Reiki there and they wanted to partner with us as much as we want to partner with them. So that sort of happened, but now we're looking also at staff, and I think this is our wonderful, needed, golden opportunity to get the wealth of what we do through integrative therapies right into the heart of the NHS for those that are right at the pointy end of care. I had a email the other night at 11:15 from a trauma nurse saying, help us, we need this, and so I've already had one meeting with her and another one on Thursday, and she's pulling in the trauma psychologist and the trauma physio, and she says, we need this, we need more help. So I can't imagine that would have happened all those years ago. Our reputation has been built seriously strongly, as we know, as just beautifully as your analogy described. You know, you wouldn't tap on the pilot's door and say, can I fly this plane? Absolutely. So it's been a little bit of a navigation, interesting route, but always aware that the most important thing is how we project ourselves and portray ourselves as practitioners in the NHS. And introducing Reiki sort of 4 odd years ago, the work I did with that fantastic team, it was a funded team, a Reiki organisation, raised the funds, and we have 5 fantastic Reiki practitioners, but they are now fully embedded, and we spend a lot of time on the induction and mentoring and getting them au fait with the clinical phraseology, shall we say, so that they landed not going, oh gosh, what do I do, which would be quite normal in some of the environments that we work in, that they land with confidence. And that was a huge investment we made in their learning, but it has paid off. A call the other day, need a child on life support in intensive care, please send someone. And we sent our fabulous Reiki practitioner, and the child got a treatment, the mum got a treatment, and 3 nurses asked for a treatment, and they never had Reiki before, and they went, oh my god, this is so amazing, and I've got terrible pain in my neck, or I my this or my that, or I haven't really recovered from COVID, I was on a COVID ward, and suddenly like, can we have this for intensive care? The answer is yes. When can we start? So the need is big, we're there, we're embedded. As I said, I never imagined this project to be just one trust, but it's a big one, and it's a great one, and it saved my life, and it's full of incredible people. And I've got another trust has adopted us in Brighton, and Hayward's Heath as well. And so what I'm keen to do is share our know-how of how to get quality practitioners in and how that is navigated, and that's kind of where I'm at. To date we have delivered, I think it's over 30,000 treatments, and I had a call with that very first patient the other day, and he is not only well, he is seriously well. He's done marathons, he's now doing a monster cycling thing, he's got 2 kids, fabulous family, and he says, I don't really know what you did, Susie, but thank you. And I'm like, it's definitely not me, you did it, but I am just grateful to have that, perhaps that early learning from 6 years old, that sensitivity of actually we can't really use our brains so much for this. Yes, we need to. I became a scientist to try to use my brain in that angle, but it's actually a beautiful journey of navigation with something much bigger, and the most amazing and important people come to the project when it's needed, and it's always been the way. And if it stops, I know I'm doing something wrong, step back, wait, find the route, and go again. And that is how I've done it. I know you've been recording that, and that'll get out, and that's now out of being under the radar, because it's time. I feel it's important, and we're here with you guys and the Dr. Healer Network, and it's time. So thank you, and I hope I haven't overrun, but thank you, everyone.
Okay, question and answers for Suzanne now.
Thank you so much for
And we'll be back in a
talk.
few minutes
Does anybody
with
have
Annie
any
Hallett.
questions
So
at
do
all?
join us again shortly.